Something feels different about Bryson DeChambeau right now. Not because he forgot how to hit it 350. Not because the crowd stopped caring. And not because the talent disappeared. In some ways, Bryson might be more dangerous, more fascinating, and more important to golf than ever. But that is exactly why this moment feels so unsettling. Because for the first time in a long time, the biggest question around Bryson is not whether he can win another major. It is whether the version of Bryson we have been watching can actually survive what comes next. One path leads to legacy. Another leads to isolation. Another could change the way golf works entirely. And somewhere in the middle of all that noise is a player who has spent years turning himself into an experiment, a brand, a villain, a fan favorite, and maybe now, a man standing at the edge of the biggest decision of his career. And trust me, the part that makes this a breaking point is not what most people think. If you truly love golf, if this game means something to you, and if you enjoy stories that go deeper than just a scorecard, then subscribe and become part of this golf family. Because moments like this are why we watch. Not just for the trophies, but for the pressure, the choices, and the human side of the game that stays with you long after the final putt drops. To understand why this feels so big, you have to go back to Pinehurst. Bryson DeChambeau did not just win the 2024 U.S. Open. He survived it. He held off Rory McIlroy in one of the most dramatic finishes golf has seen in years, saved par on the final hole after missing the fairway, and walked away with his second U.S. Open title after admitting how badly the loss at the PGA had stung him. Then he said something even bigger. He said he hoped that moment could help bridge golf's divide, because all he wanted to do was entertain people and do his best for the game. That was the moment Bryson stopped being just a polarizing figure and started feeling like a central character in modern golf. And that matters, because fans can feel when player changes. For years, Bryson was treated like a science project with spikes. The bulk up, the equations, the one-length irons, the endless testing, the debates. Some people loved it. Some people rolled their eyes. But slowly, something unexpected happened. The more Bryson leaned into being himself, the more authentic he started to feel. Not polished, not perfect, just real, loudly real. And in a sport that can sometimes hide personality behind polite applause, that kind of honesty hits different. But here's the part nobody talks about. The 2025 season started making it look like Bryson was about to turn that Pinehurst breakthrough into something even bigger. ESPN noted before the 2025 U.S. Open that, outside of Scottie Scheffler, Bryson had been the most consistent major player over the previous 2 years, with 6 top-6 finishes in his last 9 major starts. At Augusta that spring, he was still doing what only Bryson does, testing different driver heads because at his swing speed, tiny manufacturing tolerances can change everything. Then he won LIV Golf Korea with a back 9 charge after nearly letting another lead disappear, saying he finally told himself to play like a kid again. That is not a player fading away. That is a player searching, learning, and still swinging with belief. That is why so many golf fans started believing the next chapter would be huge. Not just another big finish. Not just another viral video. I mean the kind of chapter that changes legacy. The kind where people stop saying, Bryson is interesting, and start saying, Bryson is inevitable. And if you're a golf fan, you know how rare that feeling is. You do not get many players who can walk onto a property and make the entire energy of a tournament feel different. Wait till you hear what happened next, because this is where the pressure got heavier. At the 2025 Masters, Bryson briefly had the lead on Sunday. For a moment, it felt like the whole sport was tilting in his direction. But Reuters reported that his wobbly iron play let the green jacket slip away, and he finished tied for 5th while Rory completed the career Grand Slam. Then came Oakmont at the U.S. Open, where Bryson admitted the golf course got him after thick rough and slick greens knocked him off balance early in his title defense. Suddenly, the same guy who looked capable of taking over the major season was also being reminded, in real time, how brutally thin the line is between domination and frustration. And this is where everything changed. Because when Bryson is winning, the experiment looks genius. The power looks unstoppable. The confidence looks visionary. But when the margins turn against him, golf asks a harder question. Can this version of Bryson hold up everywhere? In every wind, on every surface, under every form of pressure? At the Open in 2025, he opened with a 78 and said afterward that he wanted to go home. Then he came back the next day with a 65, saying his dad always told him never to give up. And in the middle of that emotional swing, he admitted something important. To be a complete golfer, you have to win over there too. That's not just a score update. That's self-awareness. That is what makes Bryson such a compelling watch. Golf is not exposing whether he can hit one shot. It is exposing what he still wants to become. A complete champion, a modern entertainer, a disruptor who changed the game but never fully came back to the center of it. That tension is always there with him. And honestly, that's why fans stay locked in. Because Bryson does not feel finished. He feels unresolved. But here's the real breaking point. It is bigger than Augusta, bigger than Oakmont, bigger than whether his irons are dialed or his wedges come off the face clean. In early 2026, Bryson openly said a YouTube-only path was an incredibly viable option, arguing that his content work could keep him sharp enough for the majors. He also said he would honor the final year of his LIV deal. Then, by May, he was publicly talking about uncertainty around what comes next, saying he was committed to helping team golf work, while also admitting that if a PGA Tour return ever happened, it would come down to whether the players wanted him back. Read that again. One of the most recognizable golfers on the planet is now standing in a place where his talent is unquestioned, his popularity is massive, but his long-term lane in professional golf still feels unsettled. That is a breaking point. And from a fan perspective, that hits hard. Because whether you've rooted for Bryson or doubted him, golf is better when he matters. Golf is better when somebody shows up and makes you feel something. When the range session looks like a lab experiment. When the tee shot sounds different. When the crowd leans in. When a player is willing to be awkward, bold, obsessive, and still vulnerable enough to let us see the fight underneath it all. That is rare. That is valuable. And that is why this moment feels bigger than one leaderboard. So what happens now? That's the question hanging over everything. If Bryson stays exactly where he is, then he is betting that majors, content, and selective appearances are enough to build an all-time legacy. If he pushes toward the PGA Tour again, then he is stepping back into politics, history, and a room that may still be divided on him. And if he chooses to build something different entirely, blending elite competition with media, team golf, and global audience growth, then maybe Bryson is not breaking down at all. Maybe he is breaking away. And maybe that is the truth golf fans are wrestling with. We keep waiting for Bryson DeChambeau to fit neatly into one category. Power player, scientist, showman, major champion, LIV star, YouTuber. But he has outgrown every simple label people put on him. That's why this chapter feels so tense. He's no longer fighting just for trophies. He's fighting to define what his career actually means. This is why stories like this matter. Because the best moments in golf are not always the cleanest ones. Sometimes they are messy. Sometimes they are uncomfortable. Sometimes they happen when a player has to choose who he is before he can become what he wants to be. Bryson has already proven he can win majors. He has already proven he can electrify crowds. Now he has to prove something even harder. He has to decide what kind of golf life he wants before the game decides for him. So here's the question I want to leave with you. When we look back at Bryson DeChambeau years from now, will this be the moment his career started slipping away, or the moment it finally became something bigger than anyone expected? Let me know in the comments. And if you love golf stories that actually mean something, stay with this channel. We're just getting